Hello and welcome to the Anatomy of a Minecraft Model, lecture number 4, modeling software. So in previous lectures, the 3 previous lectures, we have been taking a look on how we can code models, how they actually work, how we can animate these models, how we can apply those to items, entities, and how we can code models, or well, code it differently for the blocks themselves. Today we're going to take a look on how we can work with some modeling softwares. We're going to take a look on Techni, which is we're going to make Minecraft models through that one. Then we're going to take a look on other modeling softwares, any other modeling software, if they can export their models in a specific format. We'll see how we can import that specific format into Minecraft. We'll also take a look on how we can actually give models to blocks. So if you want some extra fancy stuff for blocks, you can actually use models for those as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So here I am in Techni. So Techni is specifically designed for Minecraft. So in the end, what we're going to get is one exporter. Well, the model we have is going to export it into our model class that we have previously designed ourselves. First of all, it gives us this option here. What should it all be named? This model, I'm going to call it Bomb. The reason is, if you took course 3, you might remember that we had a spaceship that dropped bombs. That falling bomb there didn't have a model, and that's what we're going to fix now. I'm going to design this model here in Techni, and then we're going to import it, apply textures to it, and see how it looks like in the game. So time to hit create here, and here we are. Okay, so now if I spin around here, I can just use the scroll bar and scroll wheel and the right mouse button to just look around here. We can see that we have a wooden block here. The wooden block is not a part of your model, it's just there so we have something to refer to. Otherwise, when I would spin this around, I wouldn't see too much of a difference. Of course, we have the grid here as well, that is going to help us a bit. If you can take a closer look here in the bottom here, we can also see which direction is up there. We have the green there saying with a U there, that means up. We have the back, that's the red one there. There's the right one. So as I spin it along, we can see there's the front, there's the left, and here we have the down part, the bottom there. So that will help you along a bit in which direction we're watching. The more important part, though, if we take a look over here, is how we can control boxes, and we'll see a lot of familiar things here. Let's go back to the bigger view again. We'll take a closer look on those in a bit. But what we want to do is create a box, and we can do so by clicking here, there, or we can also click here. There are 2 buttons there for some reason. So I'm just going to click it there, and all of a sudden we have a box here. It's zoomed in on that one. Now I can rotate around it like so. Okay. So what's this next step here? Well, now we're going to go back to this box here, and as we can see, the dimensions here are 1, 1, and 1, like so, and that means it's going to be 1 by 1 by 1. If we refer to the code that we made ourselves previously, when we added a box, we did, for instance, if you had a model renderer called top, then we did top.add a box, and then we had 6 parameters. The 3 first was the position, and the 3 last one was the size. That's what we have here. So we have the X1, the Y1, and finally the C1, like that. So if we go back to the big view like so, and I just modify these, we can see that the box there is going to be modified. I'm going to just give it 4 by 4 by 4, so that's going to be a cube there. There we go. So as you can see, it just updated there. We have this little blue thing there, and that's basically the position of the model renderer. So we had a model renderer there, and then we had the box, which brings us to the next step, which is the offset. So the offset is the first 3 parameters when we add a box. When we add a box, we have 6 parameters, like I said. The first 3 is the offset. So what should we add here? Well, the negative half rule, I guess, works pretty well. Take a look on how it moves like in just a second if we go back there. So now I moved to negative half rule in 2 of them, so now we have it in the middle there. If I do it for the last one, it's going to move inside. So all of a sudden we have that blue thing there in the middle, and that's just because, well, I've put the model renderer inside the box, or basically we have the box at the box's center at the same position as the model renderer. If I take a look on these things here, we have rotations. We can also set the rotations here. There we go, and there and there. But I can just scroll these guys around like so. And if we take a look here again, and I start to scroll it, we'll see that it's actually scrolling or rotating around itself, and that's because we used the negative half rule. If we didn't do that, it will rotate around something else. So for instance, if I if I went back to 0, 0, 0 here, we would have it there in the corner, and therefore if I would rotate, we see that it rotates like that. Or even if I put it even further away, we'll see that it's going to rotate like that, exactly like we would expect, and we can rotate it like that to just get a better view there. So there we go. Okay, so what do we have next? Well, we also have two more things here. We have the position itself, and that's just the position of the model render itself. So if I'm modify this, I'm going to increase it, we can see that it's moving there. If I increase the Y, it's obviously going further down, and I can just increase these different things. So obviously the position is the model renderer's position, and the offset is the box's position. We also have the texture offset, which is where in the texture we'll get it from, well, the texture, but we'll take a closer look on that in a second. So I'm just going to delete this thing here. In the corner here we can see the ones we have, so I'm going to delete that. There you go. So now it's completely empty here, and the reason is obviously because, well, I want to create this bomb thing here, and for that I'm going to create a few different blocks, and I'll take you through the process and we'll see what we can do there. So first of all, we add a block like that. That's a new block, and what I want to do is have it 4 by 2 by 4, so it's just a matter of changing these values here, 4 by 2 by 4, like that. 4 by 2 by 4, I said, like that, sorry. And then I want to apply the negative half rule, so yes, -2, -1, -2, there you go. So now it's in the middle there, so if we would rotate it, it would rotate around itself, and that's exactly why we use the negative half rule. But I don't want the rotation there, so I'm going to reset it like that. So that's the first part of the bomb. It might not look like a bomb yet, but that's the whole point with this. There you go. So the next part is to add the body of the thingy, but before we do so, I think we can rename this thing. So I'm going to rename it tip. So that's the tip of the bomb, and then we just add another thing here, another cube, which I'm going to name the body. So just the body there, like so. And obviously that's another one now that we have there inside the first one, but that's not supposed to be the case. The body should obviously be bigger, and we can just increase this until we think it looks good. And I think a base that is a bit bigger works as the body itself there, and then we might want to actually give it some height here, so something like that, 565, like that. And but this doesn't look any good. It's like it's in the middle of the other one, and to be able to place it properly, what I want to do is just work with the negative half rule here, -2.5, -2.5, and finally -3 here. There you go. So now they are placed sort of in the same location, and then it's just a matter of modifying the position here. So I'm just going to decrease it here until I reach -4, and that's going to give us this result there. Or if we take a closer look at that thing here, like that, that's what we have now. So we have the tip there and at the bottom, and then on the top here we have the body like that. Obviously everything is gray, and that looks, there you go, a bit better in the view. Obviously everything is gray, but we will apply textures later on. So now we have sort of the main parts here, but it doesn't really look good in my opinion. So what I want to add is 4 legs to it, and by legs I don't mean so it will be able to walk around. But what I'm going to do is add here on the top, on each side, like small blocks that is facing outwards at a 45 degrees angles to give it sort of legs there. We'll see that in a bit. But so far so good. Two blocks there, and the next part is obviously to create a new one here. And I'm going to call that leg 1. We obviously need multiple ones. Okay, so it's there. The size I want for this one is 4 by 3 by 1. I think that's a good one, like so. There you go. So I want to place one of these on each side. So how do I do that up here? Well, you might think, well, negative half rule seems like a good idea. Yeah, it might be a good idea, but then each time we want to rotate it and put it on another side, then we'll have to actually move it as well. So what I want to do instead is actually give it this weird offset. If we take a look like this. So if we give it a weird offset here to be 5, here we go, minus 1.5, 1.5. That's actually negative half rule there. We have 3 as the dimension there, and we have minus 1.5 there. And finally here I want to put it at 1.5, like so. So if we have it like that, we can take a look what we have. Sorry, that's the correct screen here. So it's still very odd. We have it out here, but we have the model renderer inside there. And the reason why I want it to be like that is the following. Now we can just set, okay, minus 45. Here we can go with 90, like that. So now it's actually up there. All of a sudden, it's attached there. And then if I move the whole thing up a bit, sorry, I need to select that as well. There you go. So now it's actually placed where I want to. And of course we could do that with the negative half rule as well, but the good part is the following. Now if I change the rotation here, it's going to go just go around here, which makes it very easy to just place it, place the other sides. If we, for instance, would make this by code, we can just make a for loop that looped 4 times, and we just place the different signs there. So that's why I put the model renderer in the middle at 0, 0 here. It doesn't really matter where I put in the Y, but if we zoom in here, 0, 0, oops. Yeah, I shouldn't change that. I managed to change that. There you go. But we have 0 there and 0 there, and that puts it in the middle, and that makes it very easy for me to just rotate it around like so. And that's exactly what we're going to use very soon. So there you go. That's the first sort of leg there. And how do I create the other ones? Well, since I'm not coding at the moment, I'm actually modeling. I can't really, you know, just make a loop through and do that automatically, but it's very easy to do it manually as well. I just go up here to edit, and then I click on copy. I don't know if you can see that. Oh right, actually it's messed up. You can't see the drop downs there through Eclipse. But I just hit copy, and then from copy I click something called paste with coordinates. You can't see that, but it's called paste with coordinates, and now all of a sudden you can see that thing at least. We have 2 legs here. So we have leg 1 and leg 1 again. Okay. Obviously leg 1 and leg 1 is very bad, so I'm going to rename that other one to leg 2 there, and hit OK. So now we have that one selected, and well, what's the deal now? Well, I'm just going to move this here and put it at 90 degrees. To make it exactly 90, I'm going to edit it manually here, like so. So there you go. All of a sudden we have 2 like that, and this was very easy. I didn't have to move it at all. I just rotated it, and since we had the model renderer put at a proper location, that worked perfectly fine. And then it's just a matter of repeating this. I'm just going to, you can't see that, but I hit copy and I hit paste with coordinates, and all of a sudden we have another one here, leg 2. I'm going to rename that to leg 3, like that. And then when we have leg 3, it's just a matter of selecting that and modifying its rotation. So I'm just going to drag the slider here, and boom! Now that one is done as well. As you might have noticed, I actually reached the end of the slider here, and I can't go around it. So the next one should be in the opposite end, and therefore what I'm going to do is when I head over here, I'm going to take leg 1 and duplicate that one instead, and then make leg 0 instead to put here. It doesn't really matter what we call it. So copy, paste with coordinates. I know you can't see that, something is messed up there with the capturing, but there we go, we have leg 0, and then it's just a matter of giving that a negative rotation there to minus 90. There you go. Oh, I actually managed to get it with the slider. Never mind. messed it up. So yes, minus 90 like so, and there we go. So this is the finished product actually, apart from it not having any textures or anything. But there we go. We have the tip here, we have the body, and then the 4 legs like that. So this is going to be the falling and dropping bomb, like so. There we go. So what's the next step? Well, we might want to export it into you know, into our code and so on, but I'm going to wait with that because we might want to fix the texture, because the texture now is ridiculous, right? It's just white and gray, and you know, actually we don't have any texture at all. So what we want to do is actually, we can get a lot of help with it. So I'm just going to drag this out here so we get to see the texture, because this thing up here is actually the texture we're defining, which is currently blank, but we have some colors here, and these colors are where it is actually looking for the texture. Okay, how do I fix this? Well, let's click on the body here, and then we head over to this part. Now we have the texture offset here. So what I'm going to do is just increase this like so to 4, and then when I've done so, what we can see if we go back to the full screen here is that it has been moved down there. So if I go back to texture offset 0, as we can see, it moves back up. So it's actually showing us where in the texture we want this to be, which is quite handy. We'll see how we can use that when we create the texture itself. Right. What's the next part? Well, we still have the tip and the legs. They are still positioned in the same spot. So what I want to do is simply click on the tip, that one. I can do that in the model tree view here, or on the actual tip in the 3D view. And then what I'm going to do is increase it here. As you can see, it's moving down like that. We still have all the legs on the same position, but that's totally fine. That's exactly what I want, because I want them to use the same texture. I don't want to have to make one separate texture for them. But if we wanted that, we could do, for instance, well, something like this. I would just move one and put it next to that one, and so on and so forth. But if we take a closer look here, we can see that we have all the different sides here for the different boxes like that. And this is going to help us a lot, because what we can do is head over here. You won't really be seeing that. That's a very shame. But I go to something called Export As when I hit on click on File, and then I click on something called Texture Map. I don't know why it's not a part of the recording. I'm very sorry about that. So what you want to do is File, Export As, and then you click Texture Map. And when I did so, I got to this window here. So what I want to do is head over to the Steve's Models here, into Source, Minecraft, Assets, Examples, Textures, and then Models. So I want to store this here. So it suggests that we store that as bomb.png, and I believe that's a good idea. So we hit save there. So now all of a sudden I save this sheet here. It might seem a bit ridiculous to save it, but we'll see in just a second why that is a good thing to do. Because now if I get it here, so here I have the folder structure, and into models here, and there we have it, the saved version there. So what I'm going to do now is go into image editing software. I'm just going to use Photoshop here. That's what I'm usually using. And then I'm going to open it like so. Just drag it in there, and there we go. So now we have the exported version of the texture like so. I'm just going to zoom in, and as we can see, the text on it got messed up, but we don't really need that. We can actually zoom in like that, and I did something very silly now. There you go, sorry. The shortcut for changing the view was the same as making everything gray, but there you go. So now we have this little thing, and now we can just make the texture here on top and then save it, and we're done. So what I'm going to do is grab one gray color. I think that one will do. And what I'm also going to do is grab one red color, and then just make it from there. So we can start with this body here. The body, so we have the 4 different sides, and then we have the top there, like that, and we have the bottom there. So now it's just a matter of doing this. Okay, so here's the top. Oops, I'm having a mode here. Let's turn that off. Okay, now it's better. Now I can select it properly. Okay, so I'm just going to select the edges of all the sides like that. There you go, and then I can fill it. Fill it. What's going on? Okay, I messed something up here completely. when I hit on that. Come on, let's do like this. Yeah. There you go. Sorry, I messed something up when I hit that shortcut. I shouldn't have done that. But that solved it. So now I'm going to add that as the edge there, and then it's just a matter of filling this inner parts here, and those are going to be red. Obviously, what I do now is just about what you want it to look like, but that's modeling in the end anyways. But you know, I'm just going to make a very simple texture, and then we can see that it's being applied properly. The top and bottom of the body, I'm going to make that gray there. If we take a look in Technique, what we have as the top and the bottom of the model there, if I move it up a bit, we have it as the things we can see here around the tip, and also the upper part there. So those parts are obviously the top and the bottom of the body, and I think those should look gray. I think that's pretty good. Right, let's go back to Photoshop or image editing software basically. Let's take a look on the tip here. What should we do with the tip? Well, I think it should be gray, but I don't like it to be completely gray. I want the very tip, like the bottom part of the tip. If we take a look in Technique again, if we look down there, I think it should be red at the bottom here. And it's very easy for us to do so. Why? Well, we know it's marked as that this part here is that's the bottom. So I'm just going to leave a little spot there empty that I can make red like so. So it's very easy to know where to put the textures because it exported this little thing here. But as we can see, we're still putting the textures as we usually do if we would create it ourselves, but it's actually just showing us where to put them. And then we finally have the legs here. And what I'm going to do is actually to make these parts gray like so. There we go. And finally make the other parts there a darker red to get sort of the edges of the legs there. So then it's just a matter of filling that. There we go. If you want to make it look better, then you can spend some more time on this texture. What I'm going to do is just add some noise here like that. There we go, done. So now I have this finished texture. I put it just where it's supposed to be, and then I can hit save. So I just saved it there. Control S, so shortcut there. So now it's saved like that, and then we can head over back to Technique like this. Obviously it doesn't show up here, but what we can do is just go to Edit and click on something called Load Texture. I know you won't be able to see that, so there's no reason to show it. And here we go, the bomb.png, the one we just created, loaded there, and boom, now we can see it here. So as we defined, we wanted the borders here to be gray, and then the centers on each side here to be red, and that's exactly what it looks like. Then we also have on the bottom, we have the little red tip there. If we scroll up a bit, there we go. And then the legs are gray on the side, well, on the big faces, but the sides are red like that. There you go. So this is going to be the dropping bomb that we drop from the spaceships, which falls down as an entity there, which it haven't had a model yet, so that's exactly what we're going to use it for. So what do we do now? We obviously want to export it somehow, and that's exactly what we're going to do. What I'm going to do is click on File, Export As, and Java. So it's very easy. Just go to File, click Export As, and then click on Java, and that's going to allow us to export it as Java code. And what we want to do here is head over to Minecraft here, into Example, into Client, and here we can store it with the other models like so. So then it's just a matter of doing model bomb like that. And this is the following bomb that we're going to use like that. So now it's saved, we have exported it. Let's head over to Eclipse. I think that's a good idea. There we go. And it's not here. Wow. Did I save it in the correct one? Export as Java. Yeah. Okay, Eclipse haven't updated yet, I think. This is a bit peculiar. It should show up. Let me just double check if we can find it here. So Minecraft, and then Example, and Client there. Yeah, it's here. But let's just give it to Eclipse like that. Come on, show it then. So the Eclipse is basically saying, alright, you can't copy it in here because here we go, it just took some time. Now Eclipse has been updated. So obviously when we just added it like so, it took some time for it to refresh like that. I thought it would refresh by itself, but we could force it like that. But there we go, it just took some time, and if we zoom in we can see it properly like that. But we also can see that there are some errors there, and that's not good. There are plenty of errors there, like 60 of them. But most are just that we haven't imported stuff. So as you can see, everything is just an issue. But one of them are the package here, like so. Oops. Example.client. Right. But it's still not working. Let's import. So we import the entity there, like that, and that should do it, right? Everything works, or is it? We have an error. That's not good. So the exported thing doesn't really work properly, but I guess that's because they haven't updated it properly, because what we want to do is add the entity here as well, and that's actually what's missing, like so. There we go. Sweet. Now the model is done. Of course, it might be a bit tricky to read it, but because everything is automatically generated. But if we take a closer look here, we can see that what we have looks kind of what we've done before with the models manually. It looks a bit different, but it should be kind of the same. So there you go. What's the next step? Well, we want to render this model. Obviously, it won't help to just have the model itself. So what I'm going to do is just click on client here, new class there, and then what we want to do is simply do render bomb, extends render, like that. There you go. So import these methods here, add an implemented method. And we obviously have the doRender part, which is the entity and the X, Y, and Z, and finally the jaw and the partial tick time. There you go. And then we should return the textures down there. But we've seen this part, so it should be fairly simple. We need the model itself, model bomb model, like that. Pretty straightforward. And then we need a constructor where we can create that render bomb. Here I'm going to do model new model bomb, and while we're at it, we can, I guess it's not that important, it's just going to explode when it hit the ground anyways, but we can set the shadow size to 0.5 just for the sake of it, like that, and then it's just a matter of doing the rendering code. And this is something we will also see. We should know this. GL11 dot GL push matrix. There we go, push matrix to give it a new layer there. In the end, we do GL pop matrix, like so. We've also done that before. The next part, you should know this as well. So we've done all of this before when we have rendered other things. When we rendered the droid, we did all of these things. So there's nothing special just because we got the model from Techni. It doesn't matter. It's still a Minecraft model. It's not something special. When we work with the models that we're going to import from like Blender and Maya and so on, then we'll do it a bit differently, but not a lot different. So there we go, we just translate it to its proper location, and then we do gl11.gl scale. So we need to scale it. -1f, -1f, and 1f, like so. And then it's just a matter of binding the texture and finally rendering the model itself. So when we bind the texture, we want to use the 777B1, that unnamed thing, and give it the entity. And then it's just a matter of rendering the model. Entity 0, oops, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and finally 0.0625, like that. Sweet. So that's the rendering code, and now it's just a matter of defining the texture down there. And how should we do that? Well, we don't have to create a texture. We obviously already created that one here, the bomb.png one. We just, yeah, put it like this. So we just use the same. We didn't just use make the texture for us to take a look at it in Techni, which we of course can do and see how it looks like. But the important part is to actually use it in Minecraft, and we've done things like these before. So private static final resource location texture equals new resource location, and I have it in example, and then textures models and bomb.png. So don't forget the uppercase B there that it's suggested us to save it with. So we obviously need that one there. And then we will set it up like that. What we can do is just return the texture here. There you go. So as you can see, I do the rendering directly in here. I don't bother about having like render bomb or whatnot like that. So the reason why we put it here and then return it there is so we don't only need to load the texture once. Otherwise we would have to load it from file each and every time, and that's not really how you do it. So we load it once and then you just return it here every time it should be rendered, which is all the time. So to load it all the time would be a very bad idea. But there we go. So we have render bomb, we have model bomb, and we finally have to tell the client proxy about these things. We need to register the whole thing. However, I want us to be able to take a closer look at the actual at the actual bomb. And if you remember from the spaceship and the bomb drop and so on, what we had, well, was just a bomb that fell and then exploded. So it's a bit tricky to take a look at that. So before we do the final thing where the bomb drops and so on, I want us to be able to, well, study it a bit closer, and therefore I'm going to hijack the spaceships. And as you can see, I removed the code for up here that register the render spaceship, and then I'm just going to tell it like this: register entity handler and use the spaceship entity spaceship dot class, and then we just give it the bomb render bomb like that. There you go. So we will do it properly later, but for now we're going to make sure that the spaceships looks like a bomb so we can study it further. Otherwise we will have to fly along with the bomb to take a look at it because it moves quite fast. And the reason why this works properly is because we're never actually referring to the entity bomb in here. We don't actually matter. We don't need to animate anything depending on the bomb and so on. So it's just a generic rendering code, so we can use this for anything we want that wants to look like a bomb, that is. So we'll do it like this for now, and then we'll do it the proper way in the end of this first part of the lecture. So let's load this and take a look. And to clarify, the bomb that is being dropped is not from the droids from previous lectures. It's the bomb that we actually had in earlier courses, in course number 3, where we had a spaceship that the player could ride and drop bombs from. So we don't code anything new. We don't code a bomb. The bomb is already there. But like I just did, we are actually not giving the bomb this rendering just yet. We're going to take a look at it as a part of the spaceship there, and I was just playing along there a bit. So what we will do here is ignore that, and we can ignore these things, and we can keep the wand. Right, so if you haven't taken those courses, well, course number 3, basically we had this wand of the rocket, and if I shift right click on the ground we will get a spaceship, but now we render that as the bomb instead. And there we go, that's our this doesn't really look that good, right? It almost looks correct, but if we take a look in Techni, that's not what we designed. This is what we designed. Like that. But it looks like this. So what's the issue here? Well, I'm personally a bit surprised that we have such a big issue, but sometimes there might be minor differences between Techni and Minecraft, and the reason is obviously because Techni has its own rendering code. It renders it in its own program. It can't really use Minecraft's own rendering code. It's just trying to mimic that, but in some cases it might get a bit wrong. But like I said, I'm a bit surprised that it's this much wrong. But what's happening, if we take a look here, it still looks sort of right, doesn't it? We have the top one there, that's placed properly, and we have one here on each side, and they sort of have the correct rotation in some sense, but it's still a bit wrong, isn't it? What is the issue here? Well, the issue is actually the order we apply rotations at, and that's why I'm a bit surprised that Techni doesn't do it in the same order as Minecraft does, because it should try to mimic that. So if we go and take a look at the model bomb here, like so, we just set the rotations here, that's totally fine, but the issue is, if we set the rotation, think about it, if we rotate an object 90 degrees, then if we do any further rotations to that, that's going to be affected by what we rotated in the first place, like the first time we rotated. So when we rotate, for instance, this thing here, the Z rotation there, then we're going to affect how the Y rotation works like when we rotate it later on. Okay? So what I mean with this is, when we rotate things when we do the render itself, so it doesn't happen when we actually set the rotation here, but when we do the rendering, what happens is that first we apply the Z rotation, then we apply the Y rotation, and finally we apply the X rotation. That's just how Minecraft does it. It has to do it in some order, and if we do it like that, then we have to take into account when we rotate it in the Y direction that the Z direction has already been rotated, and that's going to modify a bit what we're going to do. Okay, so why is this an issue? Well, like I said, Techni for some reason is rotating it in a different order, and therefore it looks like this. And I just tried it myself and realized that Techni renders it with Y first, then Z, and finally X. And that's the complete wrong order. We want it to be Z, Y, X to make it work with Minecraft. So that's what I will have to change. But we can't really just change that. So that's a bit of a trouble. But we'll see a trick that I use at times to change the order. So it's not just because Techni managed to mess up in this rare occasion that you will have to do this trick. You can use it at other times as well. But before we do so, I think we should clean this up a bit, because if I want to fix the issue, I'll have to fix it 4 times, and that's not good. So I'm just going to create a loop and modify the angle each time. And that's exactly what I was talking about when I set the rotation point in Techni here. We wanted to make it easy to just rotate it around, and we use that when we rotate the things manually like this, but of course we can do it in the code as well. So without further ado, let's change these things a bit. So what I'm going to do is just remove the 3 last legs like that. There you go. And the rotation here should be that one times I. Obviously we don't have that yet, but you know, we should clean this up a bit. And instead of having 4 different variables here, I want to have a field here called leg, so we can store them all, and then it's just a matter of looping through those here in the end and render them all. So for model renderer legs, oops, and then we can do leg dot render and give it F5 there. So they are not even named these things here, but that doesn't really matter. Okay, so how do we do this properly? Well, the only thing I'm going to start with is actually to clean it up, and then we'll do the effects. So what I want here is legs equals new model renderer, like that, 4 of those, and then we just loop through that and create them all. Int I equals 0, int I is less than legs dot length, like that, like so, and then we can just do model renderer leg and finally add that here, legs I equals leg. There you go. So what I've set up now is of course not a fix. It's going to work exactly the same as before. We're going to have the same issue. But what I did was, instead of creating 4 different model renderers with 4 different pieces of code, I'm using the same piece of code here, which is the code that Technique generated for us, but just slightly modified. And it's very easy for us to do so, just because we know how, well, the models work. We have been taking lectures about how we set up our own models by code and how we animate those, so it should be fairly easy to just modify the model we made in Technique. So we still have the box there, we still have the rotation, but now we calculate it with I there, and there we go. So how do we fix this? Well, like I said, the rotation Minecraft does it is C, Y, and finally X. As I also said, the order that Technique looks like it does it is Y, C, X, and that's completely the wrong order. So how do we trick it to render in that order? Because obviously Minecraft is the part that renders it wrong, because we have set it up in Technique and we want it to look like that in Minecraft as well. But it's not Minecraft that messes it up, it's obviously Technique that does it. But since we have made it look good in Technique and want it to look good in Minecraft, we have to fool Minecraft to work like Technique, like in that order. And we can do that. So what I'm going to do is create this thing here, model renderer. So I'm going to work with the rotation helper or something like that, equals new model renderer. And I'm just going to give it this there. I don't care about the location of the texture. And then what I want to do is replace a few things here. You'll see in just a second what this is. Child, leg, and then finally we have set rotation. Move these to different ones. I'll go through this in just a second. I'm just going to modify this so I can easier talk about what's happening here. There you go, and finally rotation helper there. Okay, so what just happened? A lot of moving around and a lot of copying and pasting there. But basically what I have here is something I call the rotation helper. And like I said, you can use these in other scenarios as well. Basically when we want to change the order of all the rotations. But what we have here is that we have the rotation helper and the leg. So we have two different model renderers, and in the end the one we render is actually the rotation handler. But remember, if we have a child of a model that is being rendered, that one is also being rendered, and that's exactly what we do. So leg is a child to rotation helper. The rotation helper itself has the position, so we moved everything up 1 pixel. That was the position of the model renderer, but now we're moving the rotation helper instead. The leg itself has the box, and these are just childs there. So basically we just have 2 model renderers for 1 box. That's a bit weird, but we can totally do that, and there's nothing wrong with it. And the reason why I do so is this. We set the rotation, the Y rotation, for the rotation helper. Okay, we can totally do that. But since the leg is a child to rotation helper, that means that everything we do with rotation helper is going to be applied for the leg as well. But since leg has the position 0, 0, 0, we never actually set the rotation point there. That means it's going to have the same location at the rotation helper, and therefore when we rotate the rotation helper, we won't move the leg. We will however rotate the leg, because it's obviously going to follow along with the rotation. It's the same way when we rotated things around its own axis. For instance, the core of the droid. When we rotated it around its own axis, it just span around, and we did so by adding the center of the box at the same position as the model renderer. So that's the same idea here. But then what we do is we apply the rest of the rotations for the leg itself. So what's going on here? Well, what we have is we first go with Y, then we go rotate in C, and finally in X. And that's the direction we want. We want Y, C, and and X there. So usually we can't do it because obviously it always goes C, Y, and X, but since we split it up in 2 model renderers and just gave the Y rotation first to the parent and gave the rest to the child there, what we're doing by leaving these blank, those obviously don't do anything, we do the Y rotation first, and then we do the rest there for the leg itself. So that's a trick you can do to force it to render the rotation in a specific order, and that's exactly what I've done here. Apply the Y first, then apply the C, and finally the X. Let's take a look. Right. There you go. Now it looks like it should be. So in Technique it looks like this. In the exported version it looks like this. That's the same. Sweet. So like I said, I'm a bit surprised that Technique rendered it in the wrong order, like the rotations was applied in the wrong order, but we can easily fix that by tricking it to render it in the correct order. And that trick to render it in the correct order, that's nothing specific to just messing with Technique here, but I've done that before, so you can use it in other locations where you want to make sure that this direction should be rotated first, because we maybe have the angle there calculated in some sense, and then we have the other angles calculated to be affected by that angle, and so on. So if you want to force it to render in another order, then the default one is actually important to know, which is C, Y, and X, so sort of backwards. But if we want to force it to render in another order, we can totally do it like that. So now we have the finished result here, and in most cases you might not have to modify the code, but here we had to, because Technique messed it up a bit. I don't know if it's just a bug or what was going on there, but there we go, we have fixed it. So let's implement it properly, like add the rendering properly, and that should be fairly simple. So I'm just going to go to the client proxy, give the spaceship back its normal code, and finally actually change it here to entity bomb instead, like so. Import that, and we should be ready to go. Let's start it. Here we go. And here we go. All of a sudden we have these models back, and these models we had in the in course 3, they were pre-made by me, so we haven't actually taken a look on how we made these. But you should be fairly easy. You should fairly easily be able to make one of these yourselves. It's just a lot of boxes here together with textures. You can do that as an exercise if you want to create that from scratch. But what I'm doing here is just getting the charged version like that. So I want the red one. There we go. And now we can drop some bombs from it, shall we? So now it's just a matter for me of hitting space, and there we go. It falls down there and spawns the bombs there, the bomber blocks, like that. Sweet. So it actually works there. And you know, that's pretty much it for Technique and what we can do with Technique. And in the end, what we get is obviously the model, and then we can use that. Some things to note is that sometimes things might look a bit different because it has its own rendering code, but like I also said, I was a bit surprised that it was this big, so it might just be an issue that is going to be resolved. I'm not entirely sure. But as we also saw, it was very easy to just set up and see the result that we had, and it was also very easy to get the textures work properly. I know some people that just use it to get the texture sheets working properly. It just generated a piece there, and it put it there. Well, we can just put it where that texture was. But as we also seen, everything that we have learned about models still applies. So we can work with Technique there and set it up properly, and then we can modify it a bit in the code if you want to modify it, and so on. But a last thing also worth noting is Technique doesn't really work with child models at all, so that's not really too well. If we take a look on these droids here, we wouldn't really be able to make the solar panels there retract properly like that. They are segmented like that, so when we rotate the inner ones like we've seen before, the outer one is going to follow along. You can't really do that in Technique, but what you could do is prepare the model there and then modify it in code with your knowledge about how models work in Minecraft. But that's pretty much it for this part of the lecture. After the break, we'll take a look on how we can import .obj files from softwares like Blender and Maya and whatnot. But that's about it for now. We'll take a look on that after the break. I'll see you then.